The juicy matchup of the, I want to say Sunday slate, but as I said earlier, I've got my days all confused. But the juicy matchup, Detroit at Minnesota, big high over under at 47. Now this feels like this could be one that you are building plenty of stacks and plenty of lineups around for DFS this week, Tom.
Yeah, obviously this would be the kind of game that if Kirk Cousins was playing, it would just be, everybody would be targeting it. I think you could easily say this would be like a 51 point over under if you had Kirk Cousins in there. As it is, we kind of saw enough from Justin Jefferson last week. We saw enough from Jordan Addison last week where it's like, okay, well, yeah, there's probably a good chance for this game can still be fun. I mean, the Lions, they got back on track last week with 42 points over the Broncos, and we're kind of starting to see how they see themselves as a playoff team at this point in the year. Jahmyr Gibbs is never going to have 90% of the work. He's only getting the kind of 15 plus touches or so consistently, but it's working for them. And where this game comes back to, for me, for the fantasy value, the Vikings, they blitz at a league-high 44% rate, and so much of that is going to dictate whether Jahmyr Gibbs is in the game or whether David Montgomery is in the game. How much is Jahmyr Gibbs being trusted in pass protection now when a team is sending all their blitzers at you? Or is that going to mean that David Montgomery's in there? Because what the Lions could be trying to do is actually get quick passes to beat the blitz near the line of scrimmage. And if that means that we've got to play David Montgomery more and he ends up catching those, then it's going to be a really difficult day for Jahmyr Gibbs. But I like both. I think I'd possibly lean towards Jahmyr Gibbs because this is a high over-under, and I think that his ceiling is fantastic. You look over the last few games and he's been rushing the ball much more effectively. I think you go back, he's at 226 rushing yards in the last 3 games. So I have more faith in him now than I did. Then on the other side, what does Ty Chandler do after last week having a career-high 26 touches for 157 yards, touchdown? He had 5.7 yards per carry, easily outperformed anything Alexander Mattison has done this season. He's going up against the Lions' run defense, who allow the fewest fantasy points to running backs. But the 2 biggest performances they've allowed this season have both come since week 10 to Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara. And we already talked about it with Austin Eckler. He looks pretty washed, but he managed to get there against this Lions team. So can Ty Chandler get there? I think I'll play him in DFS because he's only 5,600. I imagine he's going to be quite popular, quite chalky this week. One other thing that's kind of a note with the Lions offense is that Jameson Williams ran a season high 72% route participation last week. It really does feel like, okay, he's never going to get to be trusted in the same way that Amon-Ra St. Brown is, or he's possibly never going to develop into a guy like Jamar Chase or, one of these wide receivers who've been drafted really highly and changes a franchise's fortune. But it seems like he's established a role and he's leapt Josh Reynolds now as the wide receiver too.
Yeah, I think that with the Jameson Williams, this Lions offense needs a spark, which feels a ridiculous thing to say when you think they've got Jamal Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, but it feels like they need that kind of bit of oomph. And I think that's what they've realized. And that's why we're seeing Jameson Williams work more and get more work, because they know that when it comes to playoff time, they can't just rely on being a nice, solid offense with Jamal Gibbs as your explosive weapon. They need that extra bit of oomph. And I think that's why they're trying to add in Jameson Williams. On the Ty Chandler point, I'm really excited to watch this because I think that he is such an explosive athlete. He's not the kind of player that's, yes, last week he got 26 touches and was amazing, but he's not going to need 20 touches to potentially have a really good fantasy day. He's the kind of back that could potentially get there on 10, 12 touches because he is so explosive. He's like a 95th percentile athlete. He's got that home run ability every time he touches the ball. So yes, it is a potentially tough matchup against Detroit. As you said, they're allowing the fewest fantasy points to running backs. But I think Ty Chandler's the kind of guy, particularly if Mattison's out and he's going to get that workload, he could break one and take one to the house at any point.